You know, it might be really hard for the non-Jewish partner to understand a Jewish partner's feelings of connection to Israel, but that's not something you have to navigate every single day, you know, or every December. So I've covered rabbinic officiation, which you guys didn't find controversial, which I think is really interesting. Ritual inclusion, which are also death and mourning. Death and mourning is a much bigger issue than you realize. I was going to write a guide, I did write a guide, a resource guide for interfaith families on death and mourning. And I was like, Jewish customs on death and mourning are the best. This is going to be terrific. And, you know, I covered how we have this rhythm of death. If the person dies, they're buried immediately. You treat the body with respect. That's all wonderful. You have a month of intense mourning. You have a week, and then a month of intense mourning, and then a year of mourning, and then rituals to remember the person. All fantastic. And then I got to the part about being in an interfaith family and how non-Jews aren't allowed to be buried in Jewish cemeteries. And I went, uh-oh. This isn't so good. I can't sell these people on this because basically I'm telling them that they can't be buried together if either one of them wants to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. That's not good. Then I found out that in the Boston area and in some other areas of the country, Jewish cemeteries are purchasing plots intentionally to be for interfaith families. They're contiguous with the rest of the Jewish cemetery, but they're separated by a barrier of some kind so that the halachic issue isn't there, and they will bury non-Jewish spouses next to Jewish spouses, and they have these limitations about who can officiate and blah, blah, blah. And in Boston, these have totally filled up because we have all of these observant Jews with non-Jewish spouses. And so they bought the plots. They haven't filled up with bodies. They're still alive, thank God, you know. So that's one piece about death and mourning that's really interesting. If you're a child of an interfaith marriage, or you're a Jew by choice, and your non-Jewish parent dies, what do? I learned. Most rabbis say that you're either permitted or required to sit Shiva and say Kaddish. I thought that was really interesting. Now, not all rabbis say the same thing. There's all these different decisions, and you know, if you're in this situation, please consult a rabbi and not me. I'm not a rabbi. And I say that on the website whenever anybody asks a question. I think it's this, but talk to your rabbi because I don't know. Or if I do know, I'm not willing to be responsible. But yes, so that's a question. We've had people, two people have written for us about their Jewish dads who had converted to Christianity died. And both of these women had converted to Judaism as adults. They found out that their dads had Jewish background, even though they were raised in one in Episcopalian and one in Catholic churches. And the father dies, and what do you as the child who has converted to Judaism to reclaim your Judaism do? In particular, knowing that your father was Jewish. So we have two articles like that on the site. It's really heavy. You know, if you're talking about Tsuris, that's Tsuris. You know, where the one thing that was good about these was both of them taught, especially one was very active in her synagogue. The Jewish community came to her house, set up a samovar, brought in all the food. They had a shiva. You know, they were not going to let her be alone with that and do it by herself. So that was good. But I mean, those are tricky situations. It almost feels like in order to be effective as an interfaith couple, you have to be sort of a super couple. You know, like you have to be the couple of your couple therapist's dreams because you have to like communicate with each other so well. Because you have to actually talk about death before you die, like a long time before you die, right? And I think that's a lot of communication. I think it's not the simplest thing to do this well. So, and now even though I've already had some questions, this was about when I had planned to take questions. So I'm going to take some questions, and I can show you things on the site. I can give you more anecdotes and do my introduction to Catholic and the child is being raised as a Jew. And I don't have a single good answer for this one, because what seems to work the best is if the child can participate in Christmas with the non-Jewish relatives as a friendly guest. And but you wouldn't say to a little kid, well, all your cousins are going to get presents at Christmas, but you're not because you got presents at Hanukkah. I feel like every family has to negotiate that for themselves. And I'm saying that I'm in a same-faith marriage, but I have a 6-year-old, and I cannot imagine a situation in which all the other cousins would get presents and he would sit there. I don't think that would go over so well. So I don't know what the best practice is. I do want to say that a lot of people in interfaith families wind up doing more Christmas than they thought they were going to do. And this is another opportunity to communicate a lot, because the Jewish partner may feel really uncomfortable having Christmas in their house. They have to be able to talk about that and be heard. The non-Jewish partner may feel really unhappy that they're not having Christmas in their house, and they need to be able to talk about that and be heard. And like it's a really tricky negotiation. Yeah.
When the interfaith couple is divorced,
Yeah.
and so there's a custody, situation,
Right.
and the father in this case, his family takes grandchildren to church. Mother can't do anything about it because it's on his time. Do anything on your website about that?
We need more on our website about that. I did mention it at the beginning that divorce is really hard for interfaith families because previous agreements can go nowhere, right? And even I mentioned this one guy who was raised in a family where his father converted to Christianity after having been Jewish. I mean, the father wasn't raised Jewish, but he converted back essentially and was baptized. I think that the Jewish parent has to be really clear about what they're doing and say things like, Daddy believes this. It's really nice that you're accompanying him to church. I'm hoping that you are going to follow my values about this, and I don't believe this. But I can't really give advice about that because I don't know if there's a best psychological practice for the parent in that situation. I don't know if anybody's done a study. I just feel like you really have to tell the truth about, I feel uncomfortable that Dad's taking you to church, but I'm really pleased that you are behaving well. Whatever you can come up with that is...
That's awfully white bread.
What?
That's awfully white bread. The Jews like rye.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot about, I'm not in that parenting situation. I think that sounds like really horrible. I can't really think of anything that would be worse than having your partner violate your values, but I just had a conversation with a friend who is in the middle of a divorce, and her partner is taking her child to her brother, who is a born-again Christian, and took her to Sunday school, even though she goes to day school during the week.